she's got a lot to work on, including convincing Ontarians that she knows what she's doing. And I think after this Auditor General's report, which pointed to a lot of issues, a lot of spending, a big deficit, and incurring large debt as well, what is on her list? What needs to be on her list of New Year's resolutions?
Well, I've chosen 5. You notice you're wearing my red tie, so
yes.
Maybe I can fool them into thinking I'm a liberal.
Good idea.
I don't think it's going to work. The first thing is, well, at least to do what she said she would do. She said that in 2001-7, 2001-8, she would balance the budget. Every year that she's been premier, it's only been 2. The deficit's gone up. It's going in the wrong direction. It's at $12.5 billion. And as the Auditor General pointed out in her report, even if she balances the budget as she promises by 2017, 2018, Ontario at that point will be $325 billion in debt. That's the accumulated deficits, and those aren't all her deficits. It's the accumulated from the beginning of time, but it's very high. The debt to GDP ratio is very high. And as the Auditor General said, $23,000 for every man, woman, and children. Now, you've just got to deal with that at some point. Everybody who's come and looked at their books, from the Auditor General to their own economic advisor several years ago, Don Drummond, economist, very respectful, said, look, you've got to control your spending and growth, and you can't do this simply by raising taxes. You've got to lower your spending. So to me, that's the first thing. Do what you said you would do. The second thing I would go to would be the hydrophile and particularly green energy. We've had 2 Auditor Generals report, Jim McCarter in 2011, who talked about the green energy scheme being a financial disaster, and we've had Bonnie Lysyk this time saying that the smart meters and time of use pricing were. The big thing I would say is this: there were problems in the market that they inherited. The Mike Harris, Ernie Eves Tories tried to privatize hydro, totally screwed it up, made the system more expensive. But the problem here is simple. We are in a time where we don't need more electricity. Our demand is stable. It's stable in part because the manufacturing sector is depressed. Why is the manufacturing sector depressed? In part because electricity prices are so high. So we have now the weirdest of all possible worlds. We have an excess of supply, right, with lower demand, and yet prices are rising. And I think if you look at what the Auditor Generals have looked at, what's causing it is this wind and solar fiasco. In this report, Lysyk said, basically, why are you adding more supply? You don't need it. You've got a surplus of electricity. And the problem is in the contracts that they've signed with the wind and solar developers, right, they have to pay them first. So basically, we get energy we don't need. We have to sell it at a loss for billions of dollars to other jurisdictions, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. I know the Liberals say they eliminated coal through wind and solar. They, in fact, didn't eliminate coal through wind and solar. They did it through nuclear power and natural gas. And John, the tragedy is they could have eliminated coal and gotten all those environmental benefits without wind. So it would be, at least, look, I don't expect you to admit you made a mistake. I don't expect you to go back on what you've already done. But stop bringing on more and more of this power. Just stop. Stop signing new contracts.
All right, number 3? Number
3 would be, she's got to talk honestly to us about the need to downsize the public sector.
Which areas?
She attacked Mr. Hudak because he said, "I'm going to get rid of 100,000 jobs." And you just raised it. You've got to talk honestly about what you're going to do, what you're going to downsize, because even Smokey Thomas of OPSU looked at their numbers in the 2014 election and said, "There's not money here for tens of thousands of public service positions." You should be honest. I agree with them. Be honest about, and it really, you hit it. What sectors? Health, education, well, those are the biggest sectors. But basically, look, John, at the end of the day, the Liberals are very good spinners. They're wonderful at spinning things. So are the Harper Tories. So are lots of governments. But at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. If you're taking in less than you're spending year after year after year, and 50 to 70% of your costs are for your staff, then you're going to have to make some decisions about. Now, it doesn't mean you have to fire 100,000 people. You can lay off by attrition. You don't have to. I don't think anybody wants hundreds of thousands of people thrown off the public sector roles, because then they're unemployment and they won't pay taxes. But she's got to start talking about, okay, what everybody's told you've got to downsize. What are you going to do? The fourth one would be, and this is, don't impose a carbon tax. They're already talking about this.
Right.
Really bad idea. That's not what our economy needs. And the last one, she wants a meeting with Stephen Harper. Well, the next time you have a private meeting with Stephen Harper, don't accuse him of smirking when you talk about the retirement plans of pensioners. Maybe he'll trust you more and he'll give you a meeting.
Let's hear from the Prime Minister then.
I would encourage the government of Ontario to focus on those things, not on confrontation. I would say that in terms of what we're doing, in terms of trying to address some of those issues, what we've done at the federal level is we're balancing our budget, we're cutting taxes, and we're delivering more services.
That's fine to say mind your own house, and I think a lot of people would say it's a bit of a mess, and you go around blaming Stephen Harper. At the same time, he is meeting with other provincial leaders. So is that fair?
I'm not concerned about the meeting. To me, look, politicians are human beings, and governments can deal with each other without the two leaders talking personally. The problem here is trust. And I mean, look, I think I know exactly what happened here. Harper and her did have a private meeting. It was to talk about Ontario's desire to have that retirement pension plan. Another thing I didn't get to, but it comes into fiscal downsizing. You got to get rid of that. People don't need another tax in Ontario right now. But they were talking about that. It was supposed to be in confidence. And then she comes back and she's quoted in one of the Toronto newspapers saying, Harper smirked when I talked about the retirement needs of Ontarians.
Well, you know what? He specifically said Ontarians can look after their own future.
That's what she says he said.
Okay. Did he not? I thought I heard a clip of him basically saying, leave.
Look, the point is, when you go into a meeting that's private, you keep it private. Look, other premiers of Ontario and leaders, despite party, manage this. David Peterson, the Liberal leader, and Brian Mulroney didn't see eye to eye, often attacked each other's policies in public, but worked privately, same as Bill Davis and Pierre Trudeau did. Didn't agree politically, but worked on important national issues together. She's got to reestablish that she can be trusted in a private meeting. That's all.
That's tall order ahead of her in 2015. Lori Goldstein, thank you very much.
Hope she does well, because we all need her to do well.
Of course we do.